Chapter 1, Section 3. I have a list of vocabulary words here, and let's go over them. First one I'm going to look at here is radicand, then radical, integers, whole numbers, natural numbers, irrational numbers, square root, perfect square, and the last one, inequalities. Now I've kind of grouped these up, and the groups kind of go like this. We've got radicand and radicals that kind of go together. We have our integers, whole numbers, natural numbers, and irrational numbers kind of grouped together. And then square and perfect square grouped together, and then the last one, inequalities. And this is going to help you to understand what these are. I'm going to first take a look at radicand and radical. I'm going to put out here the square root of 64. Okay? The radicand is the number 64 in here. This number right here is the radicand. Okay? The radical is this square root sign that's sitting out in front of it. Okay, so you have radicand, which is the number inside, and radical, which is the square root sign. Next, we have integers, whole numbers, natural numbers, and irrational numbers. Integers, and this is the way I want you to think of integers, is any number without a decimal. Okay, so we can go from like -2 to -1 to 0 to 1 to 2, and it keeps on going either direction. Whole numbers are going to be the numbers that start at 0 and go upwards. 0, 1, 2, 3, and it keeps on going. Natural numbers start at 1 and they go positive. 1, 2, 3, 4, and keep on going. Now the irrational numbers are numbers that have decimals that just keep on going. Okay, one of them would be pi. All right, the term pi, and that's 3.14 all the way through. Okay, another one would be the square root of 3. All right, this happens to be an irrational number. All right, now let's take a look at a square root, and let's take a look at a perfect square. Here's what I want to start doing, and you're going to learn this as you get into different chapters coming up. We're going to make a list of all the perfect squares, and we're going to make a list of all the square roots. And the square roots just come from the perfect squares. A perfect square, or let's do a square root. A square root of 64 is 8. All right? But if we go 8 squared, perfect square, it would equal 64. Notice the similarities here. All right? The square root of 8, or square root of 64 is 8, and 8 squared is 64. Right? I want you to start noticing these similarities, because as we get into chapters coming up in chapter 2, we're going to start learning about the perfect square and the square roots, and we're in all of them. All right? And these are something that you need to memorize. Now, inequalities. Inequalities would be something like if you had less than, if you had greater than, less than or equal to, or greater than or equal to. All right? These are inequalities. This is the vocabulary you have to learn for this section, and learn this because you're going to be needing this in your upcoming chapters. Quickly, let's go over just a few examples of using the square root and the squares. Okay, if I was going to give you something like this, a square root of 144. All right, it's going to be real helpful as you get down the road to realize what square, what perfect square is there out there that comes up with 144. And when you start realizing this and you start getting this, you're going to find that 12 squared equals 144. Well, if we know that 12 squared equals 144, then the square root of 144 is 12. All right? What about a number like square root of 49? Again, it's going to be real helpful to know your squares. And if you know your squares you would know that 7 squared equals 49. If 7 squared equals 49, then the square root of 49 equals 7. All right? This will help you as you start moving forward and learning this, and we'll work on knowing your perfect squares, and that's what this is. These are perfect squares here. All right? And these are square roots. And as we move forward, we'll get to learn those better. But the sooner you know these, the faster you'll get to know these.